Is there anything in the world that took the world apart, shredded businesses down, and even killed many jobs? Is there anything more powerful than the COVID-19 pandemic, which started from its roots in Wuhan, China in 2019 and slowly sent shock waves across the world? I can't imagine of anything other than the COVID-19 virus that had such a great impact on not just businesses, not just economies, but even personal lives. People who had COVID-19 struggled a lot. Most people couldn't make it through, unfortunately. It has even affected people who weren't directly affected by the disease. Some people lost loved ones, some people lost friends, some people lost employees, some people lost their employers, and the tragedy can never be talked about in good light. But 2.5 years since then, where do we see ourselves? The WHO still says that the pandemic is far from over. Nowadays, people feel it's a general hypothesis that the pandemic is over, people are free, there is no special precautions that people take. Even the buses, public places are filled with people with no masks on. People do not carry sanitizers anymore. Is this safe? Is what we're trying to study in this analysis. For this analysis, we are using data from the Government of Canada website. We'll be using some good features like number of hospitalizations, number of deaths, number of illnesses reported, number of people living in specific regions, all of this data. And we have collected this data in a CSV file, which we would be using in Power BI to present visualizations, using which we will be able to understand whether the pandemic is a thing of the past or is it still looming large between our lives. So going ahead and looking at the visualizations, so as of today, after the vaccinations have begun, we have 82.45% of Canada's population fully vaccinated. So hopefully, as a result of vaccinations, the COVID-19 should not be tapping as hard on the doors as it did 2.5 years ago. The first graph here shows the new cases detected by time. So this axis over here is the entire, from the inception of the pandemic in early January 2020, basically from the time when data started to be collected, when the pandemic was really striking hard, from that time to 3rd of December, 9th of December actually. So we have the new cases detected per each day. As we can see that the cases, it slowly started increasing throughout 2020. It reached a stage where around January 2021 we had almost 7,000 cases per day. And with the rise and fall in its curve because of the lockdowns, because of the precautions being taken, and every time the precautions would be eased or the lockdown would be eased, there would be a flare up in the numbers as shown here. So that is what has been happening, and this is where was the lockdown was started to be eased more and more. That's when the cases began to rise, and now we are here where the cases have not spiked like this anymore. At the same time, it's important to understand that it's not just about the cases being reported, it's also about how serious is a case, and whether it is fatal, whether people are being hospitalized, and if they're being hospitalized, are they being admitted in an ICU. So on the same scale, we have number of deaths. So as we see, even though the number of cases here around May is probably it's around 15 of 1,500 cases a day, but the number of deaths around that time was almost 190 deaths out of 1,500 people being diagnosed with COVID-19. That was massive. Again, this was the time when the lockdown was introduced. People were inside their houses, they were safe, and as the lockdown would be released, we would see a spike in the number of cases detected and a similar spike in the number of deaths. Around this time would be the time when people started getting vaccinated, and hence, even if the number of cases spike, the number of deaths wouldn't spike as much. Moving ahead, there were many deaths reported around 2022 January 2, when there was the Omicron variant of the coronavirus which had come up. And similarly, the number of deaths, even today, it's around 48 deaths a day. Also, if we try to understand what is meant by reproduction rate, so reproduction rate for a virus is nothing but if a virus is being carried by somebody, what is the chances that they transmit the virus to other people. So if the reproduction rate is less than 1, that means a person who's carrying the virus only can pass the virus to one person. If it's 2, that means one person can pass the virus to 2 people. So that means the virus reproduction rate should be as less as possible. And if it's lesser than 1, that means the disease is under control. So as we see, it was at the all-time high when the disease started, and it was tried to be curtailed every time, but still, as of December 9th, 2022, the number is almost 1.3, that is greater than 1, which means the disease is still not under control. Although we would see that the number of hospitalizations has increased, but the severity of the hospitalizations, basically number of people in the ICU, it's only a fraction of the number of hospitalizations, which means that the severity of the disease has become lower. Also, if we see how vaccinations have progressed, as we see by the end of 2020, there were no person who was vaccinated. By the end of 2021, 76.55% people were vaccinated, and by the end of 2022, 82.45% people are fully vaccinated. this makes a huge difference in how the disease is being controlled. So according to me, if the numbers for the fully vaccinated people go up and some restrictions are followed, or basically even if precautions at a self safety level are being followed, that should be more than enough to bring the pandemic under control and probably make it something of the past. So that would be that. Thank you for listening. Bye.